This is the word of the Lord.
I quite like weddings. Officiating at a wedding ceremony is one of the privileges of being ordained by the church. Two people coming together, vowing and declaring their commitment to each other. This is a significant moment in the life of a person, of a couple, their families, their community, and indeed the society as a whole. And no matter who you were, the wedding of the king's son was a wedding you would do well to be attentive to. Because the marriage of the king's son is not merely a family affair, is it? In Jesus' day, it was generally the marrying of two kingdoms. Marriage like this was the most common form of long-lasting, stable, strategic political alliance. Two kingdoms became inextricably connected to each other because the families of their monarchs had become intertwined. Anyone who cared about their nation or the future political landscape would pay close attention to a development of this nature. The people who were invited to the big celebration, of course, were the landed gentry. They were not the servant class. They were the demographic you might expect to appear on a king's guest list. But these guests appeared to be utterly caught up in their all too small lives. Now, of course, anyone who works on a farm knows there's always more to do than there are hours in the day, or days in the week, or weeks in the month, or months in the years, or years in your life. There's always more you can do. My dad was a small business owner. He left home every day before I was awake. Well, most days anyway. Mostly arrived home for a very late dinner, except at weekends where he did sleep in a little bit and had dinner with the family. And he was not wasting his time at work. In business, there's always more you can do. More research of products and processes, more cultivating of new suppliers and new clients. My dad missed out on so much, and we missed out on so much of Dad because he prioritised his business, a man for whom taking Sabbath seriously would have radically changed his life and our lives as a family for the better. Now, while those invited had been asked to lay aside their busy day-to-day routines, they were also being invited to a generous celebratory feast, a banquet indeed. No expense would be spared for an occasion like this. It was a mark of honour, an expression of power and prestige to put on the most lavish affair possible. The king wanted to show off. It would have been top shelf stuff. The king's glory was experienced in the quality of the food and the wine and the entertainment offered in the celebration of his son. And the guests were not obliged to bring a present to the event at all. It was their presence that was important. I remember as my parents got older, I would rack my brains for what gift to give them on a special occasion. Some of us know this drama. If asked, both my mum and dad indicated more than anything else, they simply enjoyed having the family around. Yeah, but what do you want? You know what? I turned 60, as somebody led on. Oh, that's the 60. And I'm already feeling that way too. Presence is the most we can offer because it is the offering of ourselves. We come to this feast with empty hands because the attending is the important part. And there are so many reasons to consider the wedding feast an unmissable event. The primary one would be that it is an event entirely appropriate to celebrate. To celebrate this wedding would be to do the thing that is most appropriate to do, The culture directs us to celebrate such an event, and the culture directs us in that way because it is a good moment to celebrate. Two families coming together, or even bigger, two nations coming together. And rather than competition or open hostility, there's cooperation and peace. Everybody wins. Nobody gets hurt. Nothing is destroyed. People are instead fed, and they dance together. In a world like ours today, why would you pass that up? But we do miss important things sometimes, don't we? We get so caught up in the challenges of daily life or our ambitions to get ahead, and we can't see the wood for the trees, that old saying. And we are creatures of habit, are we not? And this is not merely a pithy description. We actually do construct our lives out of a series of patterns of behaviours. That's how we do life. And they're not arbitrary patterns. They are behaviours we've decided from our own experience often that we've become committed to doing for particular reasons. And strangely, as we cultivate the illusion that we have control over more and more of our lives, our commitment to patterns or habits that make life more predictable for us also grows. Because the reality seems to be that if you want to maintain the illusion that you are in control of your life, the only option is to make your life smaller, with fewer and fewer variables. And we prefer as many things as possible to be predetermined. We want to limit the capacity for life to surprise us. Because after all, the main feature of a surprise is that it happens to us and we're not in control of it. And then to soften the impact of becoming too predictable, too dull and boring as it might be, we contrive controlled surprises. Like on the more mundane end of the scale, we immerse ourselves into the cinema, where the surprise happens at a nice safe distance. It's orchestrated for us. Or a TV series, you don't know what the ending's going to be. On a more extreme end, some people like to go whitewater rafting perhaps, or bungee jumping, or somebody's going to take on skydiving perhaps, Submit ourselves to forces way beyond our control, but in the hands of experts who know enough to have encountered all the likely surprises before and are trained to be ready for them on our behalf. We like predictable unpredictability. And there's a good reason to be risk averse, because most people a good deal of the time are just getting by. The ordinary experience of life has plenty enough variables that we can't control, and wisdom dictates we should reduce uncertainty where we can. Yet every element of increased control we want to exert in our life gives expression to a prior decision that we have made regarding our assessment of what is good and the avoiding of what we believe to be evil. When we're seeking to have maximum control of as many aspects of our life as possible, our assessment of what is good tends to be simply what we've decided we want. And frankly, we prefer to be left alone, to get on with whatever we want to do. Life already has made more demands on us than we can attend to, and who needs the added stress of going to a bloomin' wedding anyway? If I drop the things I need to do that makes my daily life work, I'll be in strife and things will not go according to plan, right? So please don't ask anything of me. Just let me be. Let me do what I need to do for my survival. People caught up in this sort of approach to day-to-day existence will miss the good things God has in store for us that are far beyond our capacity to imagine for ourselves. When I was 21 years old, that was a long time ago now, I struck out on my own as a graphic designer. I set up my own small studio. I slowly gathered a selection of clients. I earned extremely good money when I was working, and I earned absolutely nothing when I was not working. The rent on the premises had to be paid whether I had work or had no work. Telephone costs and other utility bills did not stop when the work dried up. And yet I made it a priority each week as a young Christian to go to the local high school and teach scripture. Also once a week, strange to say this these days, but I went door to door with another person, visiting local neighbours, seeking to tell them about Christ. I spent billable hours on non-billable activities, and I have never, ever gone without anything I've needed. Ever. We believe we know best about what we require, and yet so much of life is not only beyond our control, it's beyond our understanding and even our knowing. And God has all of that in hand. And so now everyone is invited to the celebration of the eternal King who is celebrating his Son. It doesn't matter who you are. There's no station in life that misses the cut. Your level of education will not exclude you. There's no income threshold you must first satisfy. Your background is immaterial. Your past behaviour is no barrier. There's no secret password, no exclusive nationality or race. You can be a conservative or a progressive. You can vote right or lean left. The invitation is extended to carnivores and vegetarians and pescatarians, and I believe even vegans are allowed in. Wherever you are found, whatever you have been found doing, no matter the context that formed you or what life has taught you to expect, you are welcome. In fact, there appears to be a custom, I'm not sure how widespread it was, but Jesus alludes to it in this story. A king hosting a wedding banquet of this nature would supply a fairly basic wedding tunic for all his guests to wear over their clothes. This offered a double benefit in a way because the guests could mingle as equals with each other. No ostentatious signalling of power or position or wealth would be accommodated. If you were one of the guests, you were simply one of the guests, just like all the other guests. Everyone was equal in that sense. And of course, the other benefit was the bridal party appeared all the more resplendent in contrast to the relative sameness and plainness of the sea of guests. There was no risk that the host and the couple that were being celebrated might be outshone by a guest going all out to steal the show. So to see a guest at a banquet dressed not in the appropriate wedding garb was not an unfortunate oversight. It was an act of deliberate, defiant arrogance. In the immortal words of Kath and Kim, it screams, "Look at me, look at me, look at me." And this is the very thing the whole setup was designed to avoid. The man without the wedding tunic could be there without the tunic on only by deliberate intent. Part of the process of being welcomed into the banquet was to be issued with the required clothing. Everyone was invited. It was not that he should not be allowed in, it was that he deliberately was disrespecting the express wishes of his gracious host. And when challenged, he had no excuse for his behaviour. So while grace may mean you are welcome to come as you are, grace does not mean we get to enter on our own terms. If you have no interest in the wishes of the king, don't assume you can be at the banquet just to disrupt things. The king will, quite understandably, not welcome you on that basis. If, on the other hand, you're ready to participate gladly and fully in the celebration that's being laid on, then come. All you need will be given to you when you need it. As you participate according to the culture and the intent of your host, all will be well. You will share in this rich celebration with the others who share as well. on the same basis as you. The strong and clear message in Jesus' story of the wedding banquet is, it doesn't much matter where you've come from. Neither is it an issue where you have been or what you've been up to. No one is overly interested in the persona you may have cultivated for interacting with other people or the creativity with which you see yourself. None of the assumptions or markers the world uses to measure a person have currency when it comes to the King's banquet. The only thing that matters is whether you want to join in. Join in not to do your own thing, but to join in to celebrate the King's Son. If that's what you want to do, then you've come to the right place. That's exactly what we're going to do here and have been doing here this morning.